All right, Trump heads to China. Can he charm Xi Jinping to abandon Iran? Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. For the past couple of weeks, Trump's operation in Iran has paused under a ceasefire that's seen a lot of firing, to be honest. Trump sent Iran a hard bargain peace agreement demanding the real end of Iran's nuclear ambitions, including giving up all nuclear material and shutting down its nuclear facilities. Trump says he was insulted by the response he got from Iran, insinuating that the ceasefire is just barely hanging on as we speak here tonight. But he made no other move besides that. It seems likely that the president was waiting for his big China meeting that we've been hearing about for months. Well, they're on their way right now. And waiting for that meeting seems to make perfect sense because China is the only thing that is propping Iran up at this point. And if properly manipulated by Trump, China has the ability to end the war and also end the regime that controls Iran. China buys about 90% of Iran's oil. Oil is about half of Iran's revenue. If China were to walk away from Iran, what's left of that regime might find they have no other option but to flee to Russia for asylum. It would be the end of the most vile and dangerous government in the world right now. The president talking about China today in a very positive way, and it was very interesting to listen to. Take a listen.
We're going to have a long talk about it. I think he's been relatively good, to be honest with you. You look at the blockade, no problem. They get a lot of their oil from that area. We've had no problem, and he's been a friend of mine. He's been somebody that we get along with. And I'll be pleased to see that good things are going to happen. This is going to be a very exciting trip. A lot of good things are going to happen.
If you could hear it there, Trump essentially thanking China for being patient as he worked to dismantle their Middle East ally and one of their main sources for energy. The Chinese have not made any move during this, which is very interesting. And Trump has taken a lot of heat for this war, of course. But to his credit, it's gone very well militarily. The United States has flexed very hard on the new Axis powers of the world. While working to create a stable Middle East, they've also taken out Venezuela. And we have seen no reaction from China or Russia on any of this. That is a serious show of strength and hegemony and all those other things. China's been very quiet, despite Trump's moves having caused significant economic pain in China, creating an energy crisis, removing the source of 15% of China's oil. The president saying today he doesn't need China's help on Iran.
Do you think that you're heading to at all with Iran?
I don't think it does. No, I don't think we need any help with Iran. We'll win it one way or the other. We'll win it peacefully or otherwise.
So he says we don't need any help on Iran, and maybe not technically, but undoubtedly this regime could be dismantled much faster if China were to abandon the Iranian regime. Between buying most of the regime's oil and also supplying its drone factories as well, there is no ally that the Iranian regime needs more than China. But in return, it could mean the president having to help a struggling China to recover in some way. And that's where it gets kind of interesting. We're going to talk about that. The New York Times reporting cracks in China's economy thanks to rising energy prices from this war, an emerging economy turning very cold. It had been going bad for China for years now. This is exacerbating the problem. From the Wall Street Journal, demographic decline, high youth and rural unemployment, the near bankruptcy of at least one-third of local governments, unsustainable debt levels, a third-world social welfare system, and chronically poor or negative returns on capital investment. There is an array of bad news for China on the economy, and as I said, it's been happening for years now. Now you add to that an energy crisis. Trump has right now the cards to potentially force China to do what he needs them to do on Iran. The question is, will he play those cards? And he's bringing a tremendous amount of corporate firepower with him to China. Look at the names of the people that are coming on this trip. You've got Elon Musk. You've got Apple's Tim Cook. You have the heads of BlackRock and Blackstone, Boeing, Visa, Goldman Sachs, MasterCard, all represented. This is a big show of force. The most important cabinet members as well going. Rubio, Hegseth, Bessent. It is a full-court press on China as Trump looks to end a war that he says, or he said today, will be over very soon. So let's talk about China and Iran. KT McFarland joins us now, former Deputy National Security Advisor. Steve Yates is a China policy expert with the Heritage Foundation. Good to have you both here. KT, Trump needs perhaps a little help ending this war in Iran and ending that regime. What do you think he can get from China in this moment?
Well, I don't think he's going to press the issue. I think he's got to, he knows that China needs this war to end faster than we need this war to end. Because as you just pointed out in your monologue, China relies on Iranian energy. And not just the oil from Iran, it's the oil from the whole region. Remember, the blockade is keeping it all out. And because Iran is closing the Strait of Hormuz, none of it's getting out, whether it's Iraq or Iran or Saudi Arabia. Oil is not getting out, or UAE. China needs it because it's roughly a quarter of China, 15, 20, 25% even of China's total energy needs. So without that, even if China has some reserves, they're burning through their energy reserves. And China needs that energy for its industrial manufacturing. It needs it for its agriculture. It needs it particularly for its high technology business. Why? Because artificial intelligence and quantum computing and all the things China wants to be really good at require an enormous amount of energy.
Yeah. Steve, talk about, China obviously needs Iran's oil. Iran needs to sell its oil too. Maybe very much more desperately than China needs to buy it. Right now there's indications that the Iranians are just dumping their excess oil into the Persian Gulf because they have nowhere to put it. Where do you see this?
Well, that's true, and it's a vital part of the president's economic pressure campaign. We're pinning in their ports, and the Treasury Secretary has access to some pretty powerful economic tools and bank accounts that go after assets too. And so I think I agree with KT. The president has the pressure in place, and he can just let them cook if he so chooses. I also don't really think China's that motivated to change the regime. If there were a change in a regime, Iranian civilization prior to the Islamists is actually pretty civilized. It wouldn't be a natural partner to China if it were to democratize. And so I don't think there's a huge incentive for China to move. That's probably why the president's saying, I'm not really asking them. He has the biggest leverage, access to America's consuming market. China can't live without that.
Yeah. Do you think, though, and Steve, one more to you really quick. Do you think that we're at a point where we're going to find a solution to this issue that he has? Because we are kind of at an inflection point. Iran is out of space for its oil. They need something changed. China absolutely needs the straits open. Everybody needs something at this point. It seems like something's going to happen, and the president keeps saying this thing's going to be over soon. What do you think?
Well, my hunch is that there is going to be some decisive action taken along those islands and that shoreline. I remember vividly, KT might have even been present for when this all happened, when the president sat down with Xi Jinping and chocolate cake was on the way, and he said that he just hit Russian assets in Syria. And it just could be that while he's touring Beijing, something's happening far away, once again to show that America is on the rise. The narrative out of China is false, and that they need to sort of get with the program. Hopefully that's the strength that President Trump is bringing. I think that's the plan.
KT, there's a new report out from the New York Times today that claims that Iran has operational access to most of its missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz. The New York Times reporting that this is coming from some leak in the Pentagon indicating that Iran is much stronger in this moment than the president has been claiming. Your thoughts on that?
I'm just not buying it. Look, we've taken out at least 75%, probably more, of all of their military capabilities, their Air Force, their Army, their air defense systems, their command and control. We've taken out the first and second and third tier of their leadership. We've taken out their defense industrial complex, so they can't remake drones. They can't rebuild missiles. They're in really bad shape. So I don't know who the New York Times thinks it's talking to, or I guess the Washington Post said the same thing, but I'm just not buying it. Common sense tells you that it doesn't work. And the whole thing about how strong Iran is, look, what's Iran's left? It's got a bunch of basically water ski boats in the Strait of Hormuz. That's its big navy. That's its big military capability. And if you think that 3 carrier strike groups and the United States Armada is not able to take out a couple of water ski boats, think again.
Steve, one more to you. Conservative economist Orrin Cass writing also in the Times that Trump may be on the verge of tying the United States to China irrevocably. Trump and Xi Jinping reportedly considering a deal to allow China to invest $1 trillion into our country, largely building factories on American soil. Your reaction to that as a potential deal, and as somebody that watches China and understands the threat of China?
I'm a little tired of doomerism at home and abroad.
Okay.
So generally, I'm a little skeptical about the fear that assertion presents. I know that there are talks about expanding Chinese investment in the United States. There are a lot of individual states in the United States where that's a very complicated thing because they've strengthened review processes on agricultural land and critical infrastructure. And I don't actually think it's the direction the president's going. He loves our auto industry. He loves all the investment and growth that's happening in our high-tech areas. I think he's in it to win on all these things. And so I think he'll find economic opportunities elsewhere. And also conspicuously, some of those biggest CEOs that are on this trip, their companies can't operate in China. And so there's a real imbalance on fairness and reciprocity that the president can use a little bit of elbow grease to maybe open up there a little bit.
KT, do you agree with Steve that potentially we could see some kind of action in Iran during this trip? It seemed like he was kind of delaying. He's very, showing that the ceasefire is hanging on by a thread. He didn't make a move yet, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens either during or shortly thereafter. And the symbolism of it, as Steve pointed out, President Trump's first military action in his first term, he took while he was having cake for dessert at Mar-a-Lago in his first summit meeting with Xi Jinping. I think that the unspoken implications, though, of this is President Trump is going to sit down with Xi Jinping, and maybe Xi Jinping wants to talk about Taiwan and other things. But just think of what must be going through the Chinese president's mind. He has just seen what 3 carrier strike groups can do in a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. If he's thinking about any ambitions that he might have towards Taiwan, just think of what that same armada could do if it sails a little further east, and the trade routes, the maritime trade routes that it could make a problem for with China.
Interesting stuff. KT, McFarland, Steve Yates, good to have you both here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Rick Grenell is the president's special missions envoy, and he joins us now. So, sticking to the topic, Iran and China, any expectations from this summit? As Hegseth is there, Bessent's there, Rubio's there. He's bringing everybody.
Well, look, this is an important meeting. President Trump has already demonstrated that the last time he really sat down and negotiated with the Chinese, he came home with big wins. He, I think, is rightly focused on the American farmers and food prices. That's going to be a clear win. Look, Rob, I think the Chinese are really excited that President Trump is coming all the way there. They like the formality. They will give him the red carpet treatment. They're trying to make sure that there are no surprises. They don't like surprises. They want everything planned out beforehand. So the teams have been working really diligently beforehand to try to set up even communiques, even press releases. The Chinese like to write beforehand. Things like, that meeting was amazing and we got a lot accomplished even before the meeting. And so when the Chinese come up against the American style is just let's wait and see. Let's see how the meeting goes before we talk about the meeting. And I think then there's another level beyond the regular American level, which is Trump level. And in President Trump's mind, he likes to make sure that he has the leverage during negotiations. And so he's going to mix it up. I think these next couple of days is going to be fascinating for America.
What do you think of the theory that these moves against Venezuela and then against Iran were strategic in a large way globally, as a check against Russia and China?
Well, look, I think foreign policy 101 is to make sure that Russia and China are not coordinating against you. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did a terrible job in that. We had multiple wars, one in the Middle East and one in Europe, that were started under those two. And you saw Russia and China really working together against the West. And so President Trump has been very good at treating them differently. And now you see with the President Trump going to China, he is absolutely trying to peel them away from each other. I think the Venezuela and Iran stuff is more about the American safety, American national security, and the American economy.
Interesting. I want to get one final thing to you. You're a Los Angeles guy, so we're going to split off from Iran for a second. I want to talk about Spencer Pratt and this campaign that I've personally been obsessed with as well. I know you have been, and so many are watching this, regardless of if you live in Los Angeles. It's been so exciting to watch somebody, an outsider, come in and take and take control of the narrative of that city and how ridiculous they've let it get. This guy he's got a great chance here. I know the polls numbers still, but he's moving it in a direction where you think he might be able to pull something off here. What's the feeling in LA from your perspective?
Well, we're hoping to have a nice, big, long Pratt summer. That's what we're hoping for. Let me just say, if you look at the way you win in Los Angeles County and in the city of Los Angeles, it's really with this group called the No Party Preference. They are the types that really don't want to be Democrats, don't want to be Republicans. They're a huge number. I would say that they tend to be kind of center left. However, something big happened today. David Foster and Catherine McPhee came out really strong for Spencer Pratt, creating a song for Spencer Pratt. Yeah. That has really
that's a music producer and that's a singer and a music producer, right? I assume they're a couple. And yeah,
they're a couple, and they're big in Hollywood. They're part of that A-list royalty of Hollywood and Los Angeles. That's the type of stuff that we need. We need to get beyond just Republican, Democrat. We need to get into what Los Angeles really wants to see, which is common sense leadership from somebody who knows how to put water in a tank and use it when there's a fire.
Yeah. And, arrest criminals and all the other very basic things you expect from government that you don't get when you live in places like Los Angeles County, which is just unbelievable. Rick, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Nice to see you, Rob.
Good luck with the Pratt summer, too. We're all following that one, of course. All right, coming up here, another massive fraud scheme against the federal government. This one uncovered by ICE. It involves thousands of foreign students.
Find over 10,000 foreign students who claim to be working for highly suspect employers.
Wait till you hear the details on this one. And then later in news from the left, Javier Becerra's bid for California governor looks like it just blew up right in his face.
By the way, this is a profile piece. This is not a gotcha piece, right?
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
At Bright Star Care, our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they are voiced. We'll be there.
What's gold is new again, pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
Is it just the mustache? No. It's the way he brings me a fresh cup of Black Rifle coffee.
Honey, you having a Riley Green dream again?
Just give me 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Welcome back. Yet another massive fraud scandal has been uncovered. The details out today, courtesy of our lax immigration policies in this country. This time the culprits are in part foreign students. Students that come here from other countries to learn here are a part of this, which should enrage you, taking the spots of your kids at our universities. ICE announcing a major fraud bust involving 10,000 overseas students and scam companies that they claim to be working for as part of the federal government's optional practical training, or OPT. Take a listen.
We have identified over 10,000 foreign students who claim to be working for highly suspect employers. We've discovered empty buildings and locked doors at addresses where hundreds of foreign students are allegedly employed. In many cases, multiple OPT employers claim to operate from the same address. We've identified foreign students who obtained work authorization documents through OPT but never showed up for work.
The company's representatives were unable to answer basic questions about the business and deferred to HR managers in India. We've seen multiple examples of alleged employers claiming that all management is overseas in India.
It's just unbelievable. Multiple examples of employers claiming that their management overseas in India. Just another incredible fraud allegation in a country that's just so easy to rip off. Congressman Brandon Gill from Texas joins us now. I want to get your reaction to this. I don't know why I haven't been stealing money from the government, Brandon. I could have been a rich man.
I think that's what a lot of hardworking taxpayers are thinking right now, especially as they just filed their taxes a couple months ago, and they're wanting to know, where is that money actually going? You know, we for too long, I think that especially Democrat administrations and Democrat lawmakers have deliberately turned the other way, as they know that government agencies are being defrauded, whenever they know that our immigration system is being abused, and the American people have had enough of it. They want to live in a country that actually serves them and not foreigners or not fraudsters, and that's what the president is bringing us back to. So here you've got 10,000, maybe more, people working with fraudulent companies in order to stay in the United States, and it's egregious, and it's going to end now.
It needs to end, and then the investigations need to come, because as you said, turning their backs, I think intentionally ignoring something that they knew was happening, because there's a political benefit in a lot of cases to that grift continuing. And so you're talking about, which I think makes them liable for the scam, liable for the theft as well.
Well, that's exactly what it is. It is Democrats essentially allowing people to defraud the federal government in multiple different areas in order to essentially buy off votes. We saw that with the Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota. You see it all over the place. It's Democrats who are using their power either at the state or at the federal level to dole out all kinds of favors to people illegally, allowing them to steal our tax dollars, allowing them to abuse our immigration system, and they're doing it essentially to buy off votes. It's wildly corrupt. And this is the kind of stuff that the American people are sick of, and that make them cynical of politics. Right. And that's why I think it's particularly important that we're recentering the federal government to benefit the American people.
And well said on that. I want to talk about your state for a second, the state of Texas, where school enrollment is plummeting. 76,000 students disappearing in just one school year. The Texas Education Commissioner can't seem to understand how it's happening. I think we know, but take a listen to this.
We are down students, and these are somewhat more accelerated than statewide demographic trends indicated. We cannot tell you the precise cause of this.
I would imagine it's deportation and self-deportation. 81% of the loss are Hispanic students, most of the children at grade school level, because we finally are enforcing immigration laws in this country.
That's exactly right, and I think that we ought to speak the basic truth that America's public education system is designed to benefit Americans, not to benefit every single person who crosses our border illegally, flaunting our laws and wants to hop on the American social system. That's not how our immigration system works. That's not how our educational system works. The reality is, whenever you flood public schools with the children of illegal aliens who oftentimes do not speak English, that reduces the quality of education for American kids. And that's something that the consequences of which we're going to have to be dealing with for a long time. So I'm glad it's finally being fixed.
Yeah.
But again, America's education system is for Americans.
Yeah, well said. Congressman, good to see you as always. We appreciate it. I want to go
Thanks
to
for
this.
having me.
The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, is hosting a candlelight vigil on the Capitol steps to honor fallen police officers. This is actually Police Week, if you didn't realize that. We're going to dip in here for just a few seconds and listen.
Honor is due, and today we're here to honor the service and the sacrifice of America's law enforcement personnel. We're here because every American who lives in freedom and safety has a duty to remember the story of those who provide it for us. That story, the story of American law enforcement, is one of honor, duty, sacrifice, and it deserves to be told and repeated again and again. At this moment in our country and its history, it's not lost on anyone that we're living through some troubling times. In the last few months, just the last few months, we've seen yet another attempt on the president's life. We've seen repeated attacks on synagogues and churches. We've seen horrific, heartbreaking tragedies like the one that struck my own hometown in Shreveport, Louisiana, just several weeks ago and took the lives of 8 innocent
All right, so the House
children.
Speaker there honoring fallen police officers during Police Week and standing in a city, by the way, that has a police force that now has the full backing and support of the federal government. The president making it clear that he's not going to mess around with crime in Washington, D.C. The cops in Washington absolutely love that. The city is so clean and safe. I was just there a couple weeks ago. And despite the fact that I witnessed an assassination attempt on the president, other than that, it's a remarkably clean and safe city, and it happened very fast. So that's the news from Washington, the breaking news tonight there with the Speaker. Coming up here after the break, the DOJ appears ready to charge Fauci with a potentially serious crime. His ridiculous catch-all pardon from Joe Biden be damned.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
IRS. 3 letters that strike fear into everyone, and for good reason. The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth, and being in debt to the IRS can have serious consequences. Oftentimes it begins with the IRS sending you a collection letter, but then escalates, and before you know it, you're having your paychecks garnished, your bank account seized, even your home or business could be at risk.
My problem was I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I was trying to take on the IRS by myself. I have 5 children, I'm trying to take care of my kids, and it was a lot of stress.
I owed the IRS over $10,000. They told me the possibilities of garnishing my wages to resolve this debt that I owed them.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. There was nothing I could do about it. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
These stories are all too common, but thankfully there's Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 most trusted tax resolution firm. Optima's experts have helped thousands of people with stories just like these resolve their tax debt.
I owe $15,000. I only had to pay $3,500, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Since I've settled everything with the IRS, with OptimaTax help, I'm going to be able to succeed instead of just worry.
They sent the paperwork in for the debt to be cleared, the liens to be taken off. Now I'm a happy camper now. If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give OptimaTax a call.
So don't wait. Today you have options. Tomorrow you might not. Optima's tax professionals are standing by, ready to help you now.
For a free consultation, call 800-375-1215. That's 800-375-1215.
Optima Tax Relief.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
To arrive at the truth, the U.S. government should admit that the Wuhan Virology Institute was experimenting to enhance the coronavirus's ability to infect humans. Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
You are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute
Do they fund
of
Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
Very smug. Tony Fauci there from Capitol Hill years ago. And as of today, we can tell you that the statute of limitations for that moment from 5 years ago has officially run out. Fauci can no longer be federally indicted for lying to Congress about not funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab in that instance. But the doctor who funded the lab that made COVID, that killed millions of people, is not off the hook just yet. His former top advisor, David Morenz, recently federally indicted, charged with conspiracy against the United States, destroying, altering, and falsifying records under Fauci during the COVID-19 pandemic, attempting to avoid the Freedom of Information Act requests that he received, and also all public transparency. So the question is, what dirt does Morenz, at 78 years old and facing decades in prison, potentially have on Tony Fauci? That makes things quite interesting for the DOJ. And despite the auto pen preemptive pardon of Fauci during his last hours in office that Biden put together, the New York Post is reporting the DOJ is weighing a new criminal case against Fauci. Insiders telling them it could be a conspiracy case just like Dr. Morenz, and Senator Rand Paul is one who's been pushing for charges against Fauci more so than pretty much anyone else in Congress for years now, and he joins us now. Sir, good to have you back on. Technically, the limitation is there for that May 11th, 2021 testimony with you, but he also testified essentially the same thing in July. Tell us where we're at with all of this.
We know there are other charges besides just lying to Congress. There's destroying records, there's telling others to destroy records, and then there's also the potential, as you said, of a conspiracy charge. So I think charges still actually loom. The biggest question, though, is whether this blanket pardon, a pardon that is for 10 years, for a 10-year period, and no specified crimes. I think it's worth challenging in court because I don't know how you can pardon people for an unspecified crime. Oh, anything you did for a 10-year period, you're now pardoned. I don't know how you can have such a pardon. So I think that should be challenged in court. I've referred him to the Biden DOJ and also to the Trump DOJ. I've sent 3 letters of criminal referral, and we would like to see him prosecuted. We think that you shouldn't get away with doing this, and you shouldn't get away with lying about it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the preemptive pardon, you know, that would go to Hunter Biden as well, and just the idea that you can just pardon for anything. I'd love to get a preemptive pardon. I'll go hog wild for a few years and just see what I can get away with. You wrote online, the DOJ may never act, but the American people know the truth. Fauci misled and defrauded this country, and you pledged to keep exposing the truth. And you've got a whistleblower testifying on Capitol Hill tomorrow about the COVID-19 cover-up. Can you give us any indication what we might hear?
You know, we passed legislation unanimously to declassify all the material. So this particular whistleblower has been investigating the origins of the virus. Did it come from a lab, as many of us believe? And there are still obstacles. So even though it's supposed to be declassified, he has found obstacles from people still in the CIA, people still in the intelligence swamp, are trying to keep something prevented and prevent the public from knowing. So that's one thing we will hear tomorrow. We will also hear that there was a circle of people where the CIA would say, we need a scientist, we really need a scientist to give us advice on this. But then the scientist they would hire is somebody who is involved with the research in China. So one of the main scientists in the United States is a guy named Ralph Barrick from the University of North Carolina. Well, he did research for nearly a decade with the bat woman, the bat scientist in Wuhan, China, where the virus came from. But then our intelligence agencies would hire him to give them advice. And it's like, well, do you think it came from the lab? And he's like, oh, no, it couldn't have come from the lab. Well, he can't be objective because he has a conflict. Peter Daszak, the guy who ran EcoHealth that funded all of this, they asked him to go to China with the WHO to investigate the origins of the virus. He funded the lab for a decade, for goodness sakes. This is the kind of circle of experts who all knew each other, but it was all orchestrated by Anthony Fauci. He's the linchpin. And he's the head of the he's the head of the organization, basically.
Yeah, and we've the largest crimes in this country everybody just seems to get away with it. I mean, they funded the creation of a virus that killed millions of people on this planet. It certainly is surreal, and thank you for staying on it. Before I let you go, I just want to ask you about birthright citizenship. You recently announced a constitutional amendment to try and end this. Writing online, the 14th Amendment was never meant to reward illegal immigration. Legal immigration built this country. Illegal immigration is being used to game the system. Only children of legal residents should receive automatic citizenship. Talk about how important it is to remove this as we see this country changing very fast.
You know, I think we can absorb the people who come legally. We have limits on it each year. We can absorb them and their children. But the people who come illegally, there are some estimates that 8 million people came across the border during the Biden administration. It transforms our country as they all become citizens. And so I think this is actually a modest or a moderate proposal. This doesn't really even have anything to do with what you do with the people. It's just that they don't become citizens and their kids don't. And I think it says that the American dream isn't about the welfare state, and it isn't about coming here, collecting welfare, and having your kids vote when you broke the law. The American dream is about work, and those who want to work, I'm open to have a discussion about that, but I'm not open to the people coming here illegally and all of their kids voting.
Can I get a 10-second answer from you on why you support housing and continue to be able to be bought by these major banks, something that the president's trying to push Congress to act on to stop institutional investing in housing in this country? With a lot of people don't like that. Why do you still support that?
I'm for contracts. If you own a house, you own the house. The government doesn't own your house. If the government comes and tells you can't sell your house to somebody, aren't they stealing your property? Aren't they stealing your value? I think it's your business. That's what private property is. It's what this country was founded upon. The idea that the government would tell you who you can sell your house to is antithetical to everything America stands for. So I don't know how anybody could be for it and be someone who believes in the Constitution, private property, or what made America great.
The general complaint that a lot of our homes are being bought up by these massive banks. People don't like that. I can understand that. I think you can too.
Well, but it's your property, it's your business, it's your house. Nobody has a right to tell you who to sell your house to.
Senator, good to have you as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. As the Trump DOJ turns up the heat on Russiagate, panic from some very familiar names like Comey and Brennan. Up next with Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows.
Politically motivated prosecutions.
It's really, really important that we recognize the danger to the rule of law that comes from this kind of vindictive prosecution.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
This Memorial Day, we honor the brave who stood watch over our nation's security. At PC-Matic, we're proud to continue that legacy by protecting your digital world. From American homes and local businesses to our nation's government agencies, we provide the only cybersecurity that's 100% researched, developed, and supported right here in the USA. PC-Matic, American-made, American strong. Visit PCMatic.com today.
Ooh, that new Cologuard Plus test.
10 out of 10.
Now I detect 95% of colon cancers.
similar to colonoscopy.
Somebody's been working on himself. Girl, those blue arms say I got you. The square jaw says trust me.
And the free return label says, I'm going places.
The Cologuard Plus test. Non-invasive, no prep, and better than ever. For people 45 plus at average risk, it's the box that checks all the boxes for screening. False positive and negative results may occur, not for those at high risk. Ask your provider or request Cologuard Plus online.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
Protect your family. Buy LifeVac now.
Thank you, Daddy.
That was us over 10 years ago from LifeVac's first commercial in our living room.
Now LifeVac has saved 5,000 lives all over the world. All these people were saved by LifeVac.
Thousands of people choke to death every year, one child every 5 days.
These tragedies don't have to happen. LifeVac is the only FDA-authorized anti-choking device. Please consider protecting yourself, your family, your community. Go to lifevac.com today.
Thanks, Dad.
We've been building chainsaws for over 100 years. Now that century of cutting comes in a mower. New blade, same bloodline.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Do you know which investment has outperformed almost every other asset class since the beginning of last year? And that Goldman Sachs research is now forecasting to reach further heights. That's right, it's gold. Central banks around the world continue to buy gold at record levels due to economic turmoil, foreign conflicts, and a weakening U.S. economy plagued by debt. If you're concerned how to protect yourself as our financial system weakens, our team at Swiss America has a solution. For over 40 years, we've helped people just like you purchase precious metals for home delivery and for your IRAs. Don't miss out before this next big price jump. Call or text Swiss America at the number on your screen to receive your free portfolio review and a copy of The Timeless Truth About Gold and Silver. Let us show you how easy it is to safeguard your money. Call or text Swiss America today.
Welcome back. The heads of the FBI, the CIA under Obama, very nervous tonight after a scheme to paint Trump as a puppet of Vladimir Putin. It appears that accountability is finally looming for the propagators of Russiagate. Thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, we now know Obama and Hillary, along with the intelligence community heads, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, concocted a hoax that they knew essentially was total nonsense to both spy on President Trump's campaign and also cripple his incoming presidency, which, of course, was viewed as a potential wrecking ball in Washington. They needed something to knock the power out of that presidency. That's what Russiagate really was. The Southern District of Florida has been investigating John Brennan for months now, interviewing many current and former underlings of his at CIA, including those that he willfully ignored as they asserted to him that Russia collusion was a complete farce, completely nonsense. He ignored them because he wanted it to cripple the presidency. And here's Brennan on MS Now, where he's been running to quite a bit lately, playing a victim and also revealing that the anti-Trump resistance is alive and well inside Washington.
There's still a legion of professionals in the law enforcement environment, the Department of Justice, as well as the CIA and other places, the ones who are refusing to follow politically motivated prosecutions, refusing to support any type of political activities on the part of the Trump administration that are inconsistent with the authorities, the responsibilities of the intelligence community, law enforcement community, and Department of Justice.
MS Now host Nicole Wallace also had James Comey on her show, charged recently for his 8647 Instagram post that he totally just found on the beach while walking.
Because I've been a critic of Donald Trump, I'm a target. I'm sure John Brennan's family feels that way. They're chasing John Brennan just because he has spoken out.
Do you think you will be investigated as part of their grand conspiracy investigation out of Florida?
It's hard to say. That is really red string on the basement crazy wall stuff.
Do you think the questions were ever answered about his affinity for Russia?
No, I don't know.
It's the euphemism of the century because they were just critics of Donald Trump is why this is happening. They just criticized him. They did nothing else. Mark Meadows is a former White House chief of staff in the first administration and a former member of Congress who played a big role in investigating the Russia hoax and one of those that was targeted by the deep state as well. Mark knows the story. Good to have you back on. Is this a weaponized DOJ under Donald Trump, or is this a DOJ holding the weaponizers to account?
Well, I think it's DOJ holding the weaponizers to account, Rob, and it's almost very difficult to listen to some of those comments when you know the fact that they actually ran to MS Now, which was in MSNBC at the time, to perpetuate the same Russia hoax, who carried it over and over again, and to suggest that there was nothing there and now it's weaponization. Listen, one thing I know is Attorney Todd Blanche is a very good attorney. He will follow the facts. But the other thing that we know is for years they said, this was the whole Russia collusion narrative consumed the first Trump administration, Rob, and yet now they're acting like, they were innocent bystanders, and it just, the American people want accountability, and hopefully we'll get there.
Only because they criticized Trump. That's it. I mean, the whole damn city criticizes Donald Trump all day, every day. This is a little different than criticism, James Comey. And just to remind people about how, because Comey does a good job of just playing a Boy Scout. Like, he's just a nice guy. He has no sinister intention. He's a good actor. A reminder of who James Comey really is. Here's 2021 talking about Trump on a podcast. This is the day that Joe Biden was sworn into office after winning that election.
It probably makes sense to impeach him, and I'm glad that happened, convict him, bar him from future service, have the prosecutors, the local prosecutors in New York, pursue him for the fraudster that he was before he ever became president, lock him up for the garden variety frauds he did there, but don't give him that center stage, that dominant role in our national life. Let him stand on the lawn at Mar-a-Lago and yell at cars in his bathrobe.
Laying out exactly what would happen under Joe Biden. All of these prosecutors, New York, Atlanta, Washington, attack at the same time. A mistake so bad it cost them 2024 and it put Trump back in the White House.
Well, it did, and they never thought that Donald Trump would be back in the White House, and we wouldn't have accountability or any transparency as it relates to these things had Donald Trump not been elected in November. But the American people are smarter than that. Here's the fact that they continue this narrative of weaponization that supposedly is different than the last 4 years under President Joe Biden. I mean, I can tell you that what we know is from text messages that during the Obama administration, it was James Comey, Clapper, and Brennan meeting together. Now, what they actually said or did, we don't know the specifics of that. But what we do know is they were either willfully ignorant of the plan that was going around about them, or that they were part of it. And the American people have the right to know. And hopefully this DOJ will get to the bottom of it.
I got 5 seconds left, but just for people that don't know what you went through and what the people around Trump went through, really quickly, just what was it like?
Well, listen, it's every day that you're talking to your attorneys more than you're talking to anybody else. But listen, I serve a good God. He's faithful, and we have a good president in the Oval Office.
Mark Meadows, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Coming up here after the break, a couple of lefty podcasters just taking in a Laker game in $5,000 or $10,000 seats with a communist and not a hint of shame.
If you've lived through numerous presidents and multiple recessions, you've seen what happens to the world economy when things get rough. And if you're looking for protection for your hard-earned savings, then look no further than American Hartford Gold. Unlike stocks, crypto, real estate, gold and silver can protect you against inflation and recessions. It's a hedge against all the things you don't want to happen to your hard-earned dollars. And with American Hartford Gold, you'll get the #1 precious metals dealer in the country and their support in making sure your money is protected by gold and silver.
Makes me feel secure having that investment there because it's not fluctuating as the market is, and it's something that you can just hold on to.
In today's day and age, you want to invest in something that is real. I think everyone should pick up the phone and call American Hartford Gold.
American Hartford Gold is the trusted leader in precious metals. Our dedicated team will work closely with you to guide you through the purchase process to help secure your future. Plus, every purchase comes with a 100% satisfaction guarantee.
Owning gold gives me a sense that it's not going to just evaporate before my very eyes. I can hold it in my hand, I can touch it, I can go spend it.
I really look at American Hartford Gold in the category of a friend, somebody that I could trust and somebody that I have confidence in.
Whether you've never owned precious metals or you're an experienced buyer, American Hartford Gold's winning reputation and best-in-class customer service will keep you coming back for years. You've worked hard over a lifetime, and that money deserves the protection that you can only find in precious metals. When you call today, ask about the exclusive Freedom Package for new customers and get your free guide to buying precious metals. Call now.
As part of our special TV offer, when you call now, you can get our free guide and the Freedom Package. This includes up to $20,000 in free silver on qualifying purchases, plus free account setup, free shipping, and more. Call now. 855-313-1143. That's 855-313-1143.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Stop. Check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. Tremfya can help with remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years. Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. A recent piece written to try and save the gubernatorial campaign of California Congresswoman Katie Porter, claiming that Porter is taking hits simply because she's just a woman in a race full of men. The headline, the lone woman left in the California governor's race, for her, it's all about temperament. Now, the piece claims that if the yelling incident was the worst thing about her, the ad suggests there's not much to be afraid of. There's not much to be afraid of with Katie Porter, basically marginalizing Porter's biggest liability, which is the fact that she just seems to be a really awful person, which is why she hasn't gotten any ground. She berates her staffers. She walks out on reporters after they ask very simple and fair questions, which was, I think the worst video was the one that's on the right there, right next to my head. Porter has been desperately trying to clean up her image after all of this. She took a bunch of Ozempic, and now she makes little ads where she laughs at herself. It's all fake. At the end of the day, this is a woman that allegedly assaulted her husband with boiling hot potatoes. Assaulted her husband with boiling hot potatoes. So yeah, temperament is a bit of an issue if you want to run a state. That's a hell of a graphic, by the way. First time I'm seeing it. Next up, similar behavior from another Democrat running for California governor, Javier Becerra, a very awkward moment where he tries to control an interview with a LA-based reporter.
This is the start of our interview with Javier Becerra in Highland Park.
By the way, this is a profile piece. This is not a gotcha piece, right?
Well, look, I think these questions are fair. It's in order to learn about you as a candidate.
So long as it's about the profile.
I don't know how you define profile, but I'd like to begin the interview.
The way I describe profile is you talk about all the things that I've done, things I want to do, and along with some tough questions. But not only tough questions.
Yeah, you see how much the left really wants to control the media. You know, desperately they demand to control the media as he's sitting there dressed kind of like a Latin dictator. Yeah, I want a profile piece there. I don't really want to answer many tough questions. And finally, far left political commentators Jennifer Welch and Jack Cocchiarella, don't know him too well, taking in the Lakers playoff game last night, sitting very low, very good seats, with avowed communist Hassan Piker, who's another one just like them. It's incredible to see these champagne communists lambast the rich all day long while behaving just like them every chance they get. All these people live in nice big houses. Kind of reminds you of AOC at the Met Gala. The hypocrisy runs wild. They don't even care. They just shove it right in your face. Kash Patel lights up a very obnoxious senator. It's a great moment up next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream to target neuropathy symptoms.
The stabbing, burning pain in your feet is real. Here's what real customers have to say about MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream, the only thing that works for my diabetic neuropathy.
Available in foot care and diabetic aisles.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Summer is coming fast. Now you can get your best summer body in just one visit to Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
This summer, I'm excited to not be covered up.
I've got abs again. Sono Bello put me in the right spot to just feel good again.
I feel beautiful. I went from this to this in just one visit.
I feel confident.
Take me to your summer day.
Micro laser technology permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin in just one visit with less downtime.
My shirts were extra large. Now I'm wearing I'm wearing a bathing suit. It changed my life.
There's no more frustration, just permanent results.
My stomach is gone.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 5-star reviews and expert surgeons. Call now for your personalized consultation. That's over a $250 value. Free. Easy monthly payment options make your best body more affordable than ever. Step into summer with confidence. Call Sono Bello today.
ProFoot by Tommy Copper has a new way to fight foot, knee, and back pain. Our most advanced insole yet, the Triad Plus Align. Feel the 3-zone support for all-day comfort. Absorbs shock and reduces fatigue. So your feet, knees, and back can feel great from morning till night. ProFoot by Tommy Copper helps you feel your best. Go to TommyCopper.com and save 50% today. Every step counts.
Finally tonight might be the body slam of the day. FBI Director Kash Patel clapping back at Chris Van Hollen after Van Hollen pressed Patel on media outlet claims that Patel has an excessive drinking problem.
And so there have been no occasions when your security detail had difficulty waking or locating you. Is that right?
Nope, it's a total farce. I don't even know where you get this stuff, but it doesn't make it credible because you say so.
I'm not saying it, Director Patel.
You are literally saying it.
No, I'm saying that these are reports, Director Patel.
No,
and
unlike your baseless reports, the only person that was slinging margaritas in El Salvador on the taxpayer dollar with a convicted gangbanging rapist was you.
You know,
the only person that ran up a $7,000 bar tab in Washington, D.C. at the lobby bar was you. So the only individual in this room that has been drinking on taxpayer dime during the day is you.
Yes. No. I'm with you. I'm with you. Golf clap for that. You better bring receipts with Kash Patel. Chris Van Hollen was like, yes, but I didn't have salt on the rim with that illegal alien criminal.
Amazing moment there.
Rob, we'll do it tomorrow night, bud.
Take it away.
Finity starts right now.
Information. Truth.
is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.